You want answers?
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended the Shaolin Temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical Rant.
For today's rant, I got a story out of Mississippi, and but this is a story that could be told in just about every state in America with just different variations. It's a sad tale of a woman by the name of Nina Buckhalter who was pregnant and using drugs while she was pregnant. I did as much digging on this story as I could find to find out which drug, but I could not find out. Every news report I found on it just reported her as being a drug user. Now, oftentimes in these stories, we're talking about marijuana, and they'll just call it drug user to make it more sensational. We are talking about Mississippi here, so there's that as well. But for now, we don't know. We don't know if it's a marijuana smoking mom. We don't know if she was using meth or coke or what it might have been. The point doesn't matter, because this happens to marijuana smoking moms all the time. Let me read from the San Francisco Gate. This is the basic rundown of the case. Prosecutors urged the Mississippi Supreme Court to allow them to pursue a manslaughter charge against a Lamar County woman whose child was stillborn and had taken drugs during her pregnancy. Nina Buckhalter suffered a stillbirth and was arrested in 2010 for culpable negligent manslaughter because of alleged drug use during her pregnancy. A local judge threw out the case in 2012. Prosecutors appealed. Assistant District Attorney Doug Miller told the justices Tuesday that state law defines an unborn child as a human being and lists crimes that can be committed against a fetus. He said while the law refers to acts of another, the mother and the unborn child are separate human beings. Circuit Judge Prentice G. Harrell threw out the case, saying the legislature did not intend to criminalize pregnant women whose drug use harms or injures an unborn fetus. Now, this is going to be a sticky situation to have to talk about, because you're talking about two very hot-button moral panic issues: drug use and pregnancy, moms, fetuses. And it starts to get into, when you make decisions based on whether a mother is harming her fetus, starts to infringe or starts to get close to those abortion rights that are also such a hot button issue in this country. But we're going to go there. We're going to take a look at this, because the problem with this kind of thinking is, once again, it's this moral panic kind of thinking. Oh my God, we don't want the children to be hurt. What about the children? The problem is the science behind this is not there to justify what they're trying to charge here. I have a document. This is from the American Medical Association, and this is from their amicus brief in the Supreme Court case, where they're making the points that this is not a just way to handle this situation. And they point out first that, of course, we are worried about the kids, and of course, we're not endorsing non-medicinal use of drugs, including alcohol or tobacco, during pregnancy. Nevertheless, what they're trying to do in Mississippi here by prosecuting this woman would have terrible consequences on mothers, on health, on so many aspects of the judicial system. Now, here is part of their arguments against. I just wanted to bring this up. First of all, the prosecution is not substantiated by the evidence. We are trying to prosecute a woman for manslaughter based on the fact that she had a stillbirth. And they make point A here in their argument that stillbirths are a common adverse effect of pregnancy, and causes are not fully understood. And just reading from this, in Mississippi in 2011, according to the document here for the American Medical Association, there were as many as 402 reported cases of stillbirth. There may have, of course, been many, many more. A wide range of medical conditions and environmental factors are believed to contribute to stillbirth. Nevertheless, a small but significant number of pregnancies result in unexplained pregnancy loss. These inexplicable outcomes account for approximately 10 to even 50% of all stillbirth. This according to Williams Obstetrics, a report Gary Cunningham et al. From the American Journal of Forensic and Medical Pathology. This in 2001. So if we're going to prosecute a woman because she was taking drugs, because that might have caused the stillbirth of her fetus, when 1 to 5 out of 10 stillbirths have no medical explanation, we could be prosecuting women for just merely being the victim of the circumstance of stillbirth, and she happened to be a pot smoker. It's just rank discrimination. Indeed, many people wrongly believe, this again from the American Medical Association, many people wrongly believe that women have a high degree of control over their pregnancy outcomes. The long-standing and constant medical reality, however, is that as many as 20 to 30% of all pregnancies will end in miscarriage or stillbirth. 20 to 30% will end in miscarriage or stillbirth for no fault of anybody's. In fact, stillbirth is one of the most common adverse outcomes of pregnancy, and it occurs despite the best intentions and precautions taken by women and their doctors. So that's one of the points here, that there is no scientific basis to show that a stillbirth is anyone's fault. Many stillbirths can just happen. But point B they make in their amicus brief, science has failed to prove that in utero exposure to illegal drugs causes unique harms to a fetus. Now, we have all sorts of data on fetal alcohol syndrome. And people, as they are wont to do, will oftentimes analogize drugs and alcohol. Well, if it's bad that a woman's drinking during pregnancy, it must be as bad if she's taking drugs. We don't have the science to show that. As they write for the American Medical Association again, in spite of myths and misconceptions, science has failed to prove that in utero exposure to illegal drugs, such as methamphetamine, causes unique harms distinguishable from those caused by other uncontrollable factors. In 2005, a national expert panel reviewed published studies about the developmental effects of prenatal exposure to meth and related drugs and concluded that, quote, the data regarding illicit methamphetamine are insufficient to draw conclusions concerning developmental toxicity in humans. There's just no science behind it. Now, this is not to say go snort a rail, if you're pregnant. This is not to say, doing 8 balls and smoking opium is the right thing to do if you're pregnant. What we're saying here is you cannot show that causes any more chance of harm to the fetus than other uncontrollable and unexplained factors. Now, in their second part, that pays attention to the fact that, we can't even prove that what she did as a pregnant mom harmed her fetus. The second part is to show that prosecuting this woman under the state's manslaughter statute will harm other mothers and children. The American Medical Association writes, the prosecution of those who suffer stillbirths will undermine the quality and accessibility of health care for many pregnant women. Every leading medical organization and governmental body to consider this issue has concluded that responding to drug use during pregnancy through criminal sanction is likely to undermine the health of pregnant women and children. This is American Medical Association's Legal Intervention During Pregnancy, Journal of the AMA, and part of their resolutions from 2001, as well as the American Psychiatric Association's Care of Pregnant and Newly Delivered Women Addicts. So every leading medical organization says punishing pregnant women for using drugs while pregnant only makes things worse for the mothers and the kids. This is true, they continue, even if the unsupported claim of harm from exposure to drugs is true, because fear of prosecution operates as a deterrent to pursuing drug treatment, prenatal care, and labor and delivery care, and discourages disclosure of critical medical information to health professionals, which anybody with half a mind can understand how this works. You're pregnant, you got a drug habit perhaps, knowing that you could get busted for that, knowing that you could get prosecuted for manslaughter to your child at worst, or at best have Child Protective Services come and take them away from you, is going to lead lots of mothers to want to lie about their habit, to not want to seek any help for their habit, to not want to seek any medical care whatsoever, lest the doctor find out something from a blood test or a urine test. And what good is that doing the kids who would benefit from that prenatal care? Not a whole lot. And that's what the American Medical Association continues to say. This prosecution will deter drug-dependent pregnant women from seeking health care. And more to the point for our show, we all understand that the detection of drugs in the urine is so much easier for marijuana than the other meth, coke, heroin, all the other drugs out there. And while we still don't have the science or the data to show this, I'm willing to take a hazarded guess here that if we had a choice to what drug a woman might be using during pregnancy, perhaps marijuana would be not the first one we would want to get her away from. Let's just put it that way. So through this drug testing, through this punitive reaction to these women using drugs, we are disproportionately punishing them for marijuana use, which in a lot of cases for pregnant women, hell, we can look back at the history. We can look back at Queen Victoria, for God's sake, using cannabis to quell morning sickness, to deal with cramps, to deal with the kind of sickness you get when you're pregnant. Again, not endorsing pregnant moms to be loading up bong hits all day. But I tend to think maybe a puff or two off of a joint for a mom with morning sickness might be better than a bunch of Imodium or Pepto or any number of antiemetics they might prescribe for her that have a laundry list of side effects that go on the second page of the magazine. It's time to get sensible about this and understand that the best way of dealing with any of the negative repercussions of drug use is through education, is through understanding and treatment, not through criminal prosecution. You make the problems with marijuana worse, and you add an extra layer of prohibition problems that never would have existed in the first place. This case is Nina Buckhalter, it's state of Mississippi, versus Nina Buckhalter, and we will have some links to that up on our blog at radicalruss.com. This document from the American Medical Association, this amicus brief, one of the best things I've read on the subject. So I want to make that available to everyone out there who might be fighting this battle in your state. It's all the time we got for today. I want to thank you all for joining us here on the Russ Belville Show. Stick around, because coming up, we got all sorts of guests in the studio. We got Bacon Dan. We got Stevie. We got President Kenny. We got Brian the Red. For all of them and for me, Radical Russ, thanks for joining us here from Rolla G Studios, live every weekday, 3 p.m. Pacific Time, 6 p.m. Eastern. Join us for Hour 2, Toker Talk Radio, coming up next. And later on tonight, 8 o'clock, the Herb Thrasher Flower Hour, a special guest, Bobby Black from High Times. I'm Radical Russ Belville. Until next time, take care of each other, Tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down.